Ethan Cole had built his entire empire on control, discipline, and emotional distance, yet somehow the simple presence of Ava Bennett inside his Manhattan penthouse had begun to dismantle rules he had followed for years, because the contract they both signed had been clear: public appearances only, no personal attachment, no emotional involvement, strictly business. But contracts did not account for the way she laughed when she forgot he was her employer, or the way she studied the city skyline as if she was still trying to prove to herself that she belonged there. And Ethan noticed everything, even when he pretended not to, especially the way she adjusted her posture at high-profile charity galas, shoulders back, chin lifted, performing confidence while her fingers subtly tightened around his arm. And every time cameras flashed, he felt an unfamiliar urge, not just to protect her reputation, but to protect her feelings, which was dangerous territory for a man whose reputation depended on being untouchable. And that danger intensified the night they attended a corporate fundraiser where investors, rivals, and social elites gathered under crystal chandeliers in quiet judgment, whispers following them like perfume, because everyone knew Ethan Cole did not date. He did not bring women to events twice, and he certainly did not look at them the way he had started looking at Ava when she wasn't watching. But that evening, she wore a deep emerald dress that caught the light with every movement, and for a brief second when she descended the grand staircase toward him, the room blurred and his perfectly measured breathing faltered, something he immediately resented himself for. Yet he offered his arm as planned, the cameras flashed, and she leaned closer than usual, her voice barely audible as she murmured that she hated how fake all of this felt. And instead of giving his usual detached reassurance, he found himself saying quietly that maybe not all of it was fake, a statement that hung between them heavier than any chandelier above. And Ava looked at him then, really looked at him, searching his expression for proof, and Ethan almost stepped back because vulnerability was not something he negotiated well. But before either of them could process the moment, a rival CEO approached with a thin smile and a calculated comment about how surprising it was to see Ethan Cole playing house, implying that relationships were weaknesses in the business world. And Ethan felt a flicker of something fierce and protective ignite inside him, not because of the insult toward himself, but because of the dismissive tone directed at Ava, and without thinking, he placed his hand firmly at the small of her back and responded with calm authority that some investments were worth the risk, shocking not only the rival, but Ava herself, because that line had not been scripted. And for the rest of the evening, he remained close to her, more attentive than necessary, subtly shielding her from intrusive questions, and she noticed, her performance softening into something almost real. And when the gala ended and they returned to the quiet of the penthouse, the city lights stretching endlessly below, neither of them rushed to retreat to separate spaces like they usually did after events. Instead, standing near the balcony in an unspoken hesitation, and Ava finally broke the silence by reminding him that the contract existed for a reason, that emotions complicated everything, that she could not afford to blur lines because her future depended on stability and independence. And Ethan listened with the calm exterior he had perfected, yet internally he was confronting a truth he could not sign away, because for the first time in years, his decisions were not solely strategic, they were personal. And he asked her a question he had not intended to voice, asking if she would leave once the contract ended, even if she didn't have to. And the vulnerability in that question shifted the air between them, because it was not a CEO negotiating terms, but a man uncertain of what he stood to lose. And Ava hesitated, her honesty visible in the way she swallowed before answering that she didn't know, because she never planned to care this much. And that admission was both a warning and a confession. And Ethan stepped closer then, close enough to feel the warmth of her presence without touching her, and for a suspended second, the distance between them felt fragile, breakable, and dangerous, and his mind listed consequences while his heart ignored them entirely, reminding him that control had never guaranteed happiness, only isolation. And when his phone buzzed with a notification about a business crisis overseas, he almost welcomed the interruption because it restored familiar ground. Yet even as he answered the call, his eyes remained on Ava, who stood there conflicted yet hopeful, and in that quiet realization, Ethan understood something irreversible had begun, because the contract may have outlined boundaries, but the way his chest tightened at the thought of losing her was not outlined anywhere in legal language. And as the night deepened and the city shimmered beneath them, he made a silent decision he would not admit out loud, that if love was a liability, then for the first time in his life, he was willing to take the risk, even if it meant breaking the one rule he had sworn never to break.